At 3:15 in the morning, while the rest of Austin slept and hackers from Eastern Europe were trying to breach a regional credit union's network, I didn't stress. I didn't panic. I just sat in the blue light of my monitors, took a slow sip of my black coffee, and realized that my 23 years of dedication were worth exactly $4,500. My name is Matthew Miller. I'm 54 years old, and until recently, I spent my nights watching computer screens, making sure financial accounts didn't vanish into thin air while the rest of Texas slept. I didn't quit in a dramatic burst of anger. I didn't slam my laptop shut, break a keyboard, or yell at anyone. I left the way a man leaves a building that has been slowly crushing him for over 2 decades. I took off my headset, set it on the desk, and walked out. It was a slow, quiet exit, and the only thing I felt was a strange, sudden weightlessness. The burden wasn't mine to carry anymore. It all started with a retention bonus announcement on a rainy Thursday morning. It was one of those corporate all-hands meetings that managers schedule when they want to pretend everything is fine, even though they are terrified of losing their key staff. I worked the overnight cybersecurity shift for Vanguard Cyber Solutions. We were a mid-sized managed security firm that handled network monitoring for regional banks and credit unions. Night shift was a thankless job. When a threat got past our firewalls at 2 a.m., my phone would buzz. I would be the one digging through system logs, blocking IP addresses, and ensuring people's retirement funds didn't disappear into some offshore server farm. The day shift got the credit and the client handshakes. The night shift got the blame whenever anything went wrong. It was a standard setup in this industry. Our night team was small. Just 5 of us rotating coverage across the week. 2 of the guys were solid engineers who knew their stuff. One was a fresh college graduate who was still trying to figure out how to read a network packet. Another guy was always busy on paper but never actually available when a critical alert fired. And then there was Sean Campbell. Scene was 30, the team lead for the day shift crew. He had a way of making everything sound incredibly easy, mostly because he didn't actually do any of the hard work. He was relaxed, always smiling, and very good at speaking the language of management. He would tell me, "Don't stress, Matt. Management knows we are the backbone of this place." Meanwhile, I was the one who had spent the last 3 Christmas Eves in the office, resolving advanced threats while Sean was at holiday parties posting photos on social media. But I had a secret weapon. Years before I joined Vanguard, I had written a proprietary threat hunting and automation framework called SentryGuard. It was a set of custom scripts that monitored network traffic, identified malicious behavior, and automatically isolated infected servers. I had built it on my own time, on my own computer, long before I ever heard of Vanguard Cyber Solutions. When I was hired, Vanguard wanted to use SentryGuard to automate their security monitoring. My lawyer, a close friend from my college days, drafted a custom licensing agreement. The agreement allowed Vanguard to use SentryGuard under a limited, revocable, non-exclusive license. One of the key clauses in that agreement, which Owen Maxwell, our director of IT operations, had signed without really reading, was that the license was contingent on Vanguard maintaining fair and equitable compensation for me. If they undervalued my role or failed to compensate me fairly compared to industry standards and internal peers, I reserved the right to revoke the license with a 24-hour notice. For years, I never thought I would need to use that clause. I just wanted to do my job, support my family, and go home. My daughter Emily was 19. She was in her sophomore year at UT Austin studying pre-med. She is incredibly smart and works twice as hard as I ever did. Her tuition and living expenses were running me about $15,000 a semester, and my salary at Vanguard was barely keeping up. I had been counting on a decent retention bonus to help cover her upcoming bills, without having to dip into my modest retirement savings. So, when Owen Maxwell called the meeting to discuss retention bonuses for critical personnel, I was hopeful. Owen started the meeting with his usual corporate speech. He talked about recognizing commitment, rewarding critical contributors, and investing in the people who made the company successful. I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. I had been keeping their clients secure for 23 years. If anyone was a critical contributor, it was me. After the meeting ended, Owen began calling people individually to deliver the bonus numbers. He wanted to keep it private so people wouldn't compare notes. Sean Campbell got his call first. A few minutes later, Sean posted in our team chat with a fake humble message. Wow, guys, really didn't expect this. Vanguard really shows the love when it counts. Then he sent me a private message with a screenshot of his agreement. It was a $32, zero in cash retention bonus with a 12-month agreement to stay. The message read, "Told you, Matt, they know who keeps this ship floating." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. It wasn't jealousy. It was the realization of how the company truly viewed me. I sat there, staring at the number on my screen, waiting for my call with Owen. When the notification popped up, I accepted the video call. Owen had a big, rehearsed smile on his face. Matthew, first of all, I want to thank you. You've been such a stabilizing force on our night operations for so many years. We really appreciate your dedication. I just nodded. I had heard this speech before. It was the prelude to bad news. We want to offer you a retention bonus as well, Owen continued, leaning forward. We're offering you $4,500. It comes with the standard 12-month retention agreement. We're really excited to have you locked in for another year. I stared at him through the webcam. I didn't say anything for a long moment. I thought he was joking, or that he had read the wrong line on his spreadsheet. I waited for him to correct himself. He didn't. He just kept smiling, waiting for me to thank him. 4,500, I repeated, my voice flat. Yes, Matthew, it reflects our current budget considerations. But we really want you to know how much we value your presence here, Owen said, his smile tightening slightly. I see, I said, valued at $4,500. Less than 15% of what they had offered a 30-year-old team lead who couldn't even configure a firewall rule without checking a manual. I told Owen I would look over the paperwork and get back to him. When the call ended, I sat in the dark of my office, the blue light of my monitors washing over my face. I opened my personal budget spreadsheet. I typed $4,500 in one cell and $32,000 in the cell next to it. The gap was $27,500. That difference was my daughter's tuition for the entire year, plus her textbooks and rent. Vanguard was willing to pay a premium to keep Sean Campbell, a man who made them feel safe during business hours by presenting slides, while they offered me pocket change to continue standing between their clients and financial ruin every single night. I looked at the unsigned retention agreement in my inbox. The terms were strict. If I signed, I was locked in for 12 months. If I left early, I had to repay the bonus immediately. It had a confidentiality clause preventing me from discussing the amount with anyone, and it explicitly stated that my employment remained at will, meaning they could still fire me at any time. They wanted me locked down, but they wanted to keep themselves completely free. I closed the email and took a deep breath. For the first time in 23 years, I didn't feel any loyalty to Vanguard Cyber Solutions. I felt a cold, clear determination. If they wanted to treat my value as negotiable, then my presence was about to become very expensive. I didn't sign the agreement. I left the document sitting in my inbox, a digital paperweight reminding me of where I stood. Over the weekend, I called Daniel Cole, my old roommate from college, who now ran a small but sharp contract law firm in Dallas. Daniel had drafted the original licensing agreement for SentryGuard 12 years ago when I first brought it to Vanguard. We met at a quiet diner on the outskirts of Austin. Daniel drank his coffee black, just like me, and spread the Vanguard agreement out on the table. He compared it with the retention agreement they had sent me on Thursday. His eyes focused on Section 4.2 of the original SentryGuard license. It was the Equitable Compensation Clause. It stated in plain English that Vanguard's right to deploy, execute, or modify my proprietary code was strictly contingent on the company maintaining compensation parity and professional recognition for my role, compared to both internal peers and industry standard metrics. They messed up, Matt, Daniel said, pointing a finger at the paper, by offering Sean Campbell $32,000 for managing the system during the day, while offering you $4,500 to actually run and defend it at night. They have created a clear, documented disparity. It is a material breach of the licensing covenant. What are my options? I asked. You can revoke the license, Daniel said. Under Section 5.1, you have the right to terminate their use of SentryGuard with a 24-hour notice if they fail to cure the breach. I will draft the formal revocation letter. Once you send it, The clock starts. If they continue to run your automation scripts after those 24 hours expire, they are committing willful copyright infringement under federal law. That is 17 U.S.C. Section 106. And since they are a security firm, they cannot claim they didn't understand the legal implications. I thanked him and told him to send me the draft. I was going to hold on to it until Monday night. When I logged in for my shift on Monday at 10 p.m., the office chat was quiet. The weekend crew had handed over a clean queue, but in our shared Slack channel, Sean Campbell was still boasting about his weekend. He had taken some clients out for a steak dinner on the company's dime, talking about how Vanguard was expanding its operations. He even posted a picture of a new watch he had bought, hinting it was his early bonus present to himself. "Keep up the good work on the night shift, guys," Sean wrote before logging off. "We have a big week ahead." I didn't reply. I just opened my monitoring console. SentryGuard was running in the background, its automated agents silently scanning network traffic across 40 different client networks. It was a beautiful piece of software, if I do say so myself. It did the work of 10 engineers, automatically neutralizing threats before they could trigger alarms. It was the only reason Vanguard could run its night shift with just a handful of people. At 11:30 p.m., the first warning light flashed red. It wasn't a standard automated attack. It was a slow, coordinated probe targeting the customer portal of First Federal Credit Union, our largest financial client. The IP addresses were rotating through residential blocks in Eastern Europe, trying to slip past our external firewalls. Usually, our default protocols would have required me to manually analyze the packets and write block rules. But SentryGuard caught it instantly. The script identified the signature, updated the local routing tables, and blocked the traffic within 4 seconds. But the attackers were persistent. Within 20 minutes, they shifted tactics. They stopped trying to force their way through the front door and began targeting a known vulnerability in our administrative portal, the very system Vanguard used to manage all of its clients. If they got through there, they wouldn't just have one bank. They would have the keys to everything. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Sean Campbell. "Hey Matt, I'm seeing some anomalous traffic reports on the First Federal dashboard. You got eyes on this?" I looked at the screen. The threat was real, but it was currently being managed by SentryGuard's active defenses. "Yes," I replied. "SentryGuard is blocking the initial probes, but they are testing the admin portal now." "Cool, cool," Sean wrote back. "Keep me posted if it gets hairy. I'm out at a lounge with some guys from sales, but I have my laptop in the car if you need me to log in and help." He was the team lead. He was earning $32,000 to retain his position, yet he was at a lounge while a sophisticated threat actor was trying to compromise our entire client base. He wanted me to do the heavy lifting while he took the credit in the morning report. I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled up the draft revocation letter Daniel had sent me. I filled in the date and the time. It was exactly midnight. I attached the signed document to an email addressed to Owen Maxwell, with CCs to the Director of Human Resources and the Chief Legal Officer of Vanguard. The email was simple. "Please find attached the formal notice of material breach and revocation of the SentryGuard licensing agreement, pursuant to Section 5.1 of our contract. Due to Vanguard's failure to maintain equitable compensation parity, the license to deploy and execute SentryGuard will terminate exactly 24 hours from the timestamp of this email. Continued use of the software past midnight on Tuesday will constitute willful copyright infringement under 17 U.S.C. Section 106. I hit send. For the next few hours, I watched the monitors. The attackers were getting more creative. They tried 3 different entry vectors, testing the limits of our defenses. But SentryGuard held them back, blocking their attempts one by one. I documented every single probe, every IP address, and every resolution. I saved the logs to my personal drive, making sure I had a complete audit trail of the night's events. I knew Owen wouldn't see the email until he walked into the office on Tuesday morning, and I knew exactly what would happen when he did. He would think I was bluffing. He would think a 54-year-old night shift engineer wouldn't dare risk his job over a licensing clause. He was about to find out how wrong he was. On Tuesday morning, my phone rang at 9:15 a.m. It was Owen Maxwell. He didn't use video this time. His voice was filled with that specific kind of corporate condescension reserved for managers who think they are talking to a subordinate who has lost his mind. Matthew, Owen said, skipping any greeting. I received your email from last night. Is this some kind of joke? A license revocation? No, Owen, I said, sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of tea. It is a formal notice. Vanguard is in material breach of Section 4.2 of the Sentry Guard licensing agreement. The compensation disparity between my role and my day shift peer constitutes a failure to maintain fair and equitable compensation. Owen laughed, a dry, irritating sound. Matthew, let's be real here. You are an employee of Vanguard Cyber Solutions. Everything you build here, everything you write, belongs to the company. That's standard employment law. You can't just revoke access to company systems. Everything I write on Vanguard's time belongs to Vanguard, I replied calmly. But SentryGuard was registered and written 12 years ago, before I ever signed an employment contract with you. You signed a licensing agreement to use my software. The terms of that license are very clear. If you don't cure the breach within 24 hours, the license terminates. We will see about that, Owen snapped. I'll have our legal department look at this. In the meantime, I expect you to perform your regular duties tonight. Don't make a mistake you'll regret, Matthew. The call ended. A few hours later, at 2 p.m., I received an email from the Director of Human Resources. It was a polite, standard message asking to schedule a meeting for Thursday afternoon to discuss my concerns about the retention program. Thursday. That was 36 hours after the license notice would expire. They were treating this like a minor internal grievance, the kind of complaint they could drag out for months while keeping me locked into my shift. They were so used to employees complaining and then eventually backing down because they needed the job. I didn't reply to the HR email. Instead, I called Daniel Cole. They're not taking it seriously, Matt, Daniel said after I explained the calls. They think you're bluffing. I've prepared the formal cease and desist order. If they continue to run the SentryGuard services past midnight tonight, I will file the copyright infringement notice with the federal court first thing tomorrow morning. Good, I said. Let's stick to the timeline. I logged into my shift at 10 p.m. on Tuesday night. The atmosphere in the team chat was tense. The automated monitoring alerts were already starting to climb. SentryGuard was active, silently processing threat packets and updating local firewalls. At 11:15 p.m., the attackers returned. This time it wasn't a probe. It was a massive, coordinated, distributed denial-of-service attack aimed directly at our primary domain name servers, paired with a sophisticated zero-day exploit targeting the administrative interface of our largest banking clients. The traffic was coming from thousands of compromised servers across Eastern Europe and Asia. The alert dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. Warning alarms were flashing red. SentryGuard's automated engines immediately kicked in, spawning isolation blocks, rate-limiting the malicious traffic, and redirecting legitimate user requests to backup servers. It was a beautiful display of automation. Without it, our network operations center would have been completely overwhelmed within 5 minutes. At 11:58 p.m., I sat back and watched the clock on my monitor count down 59 minutes, 58 seconds, 59 seconds. Midnight, the 24-hour notice had expired. Vanguard had made no attempt to cure the breach or adjust my compensation. I opened the administrative terminal on the master server. I navigated to the directory containing the SentryGuard execution script. I didn't delete any code. I didn't sabotage any files. I didn't write any malicious commands. I simply typed the standard shutdown command for the automated service. I pressed enter. Instantly, SentryGuard stopped running. The automated firewalls ceased updating. The threat-hunting scripts went quiet. The active redirection of malicious traffic halted. Within 2 minutes, the firewall buffers filled up. First Federal Credit Union's main portal went offline. 2 other regional banks followed. The status indicators on the client dashboard turned from yellow to solid, blinking red. My phone rang. It was Sean Campbell. His voice was high-pitched, filled with panic. Matt, what the hell is happening? First Federal just dropped offline. The dashboard is completely red. I'm seeing database timeout alerts everywhere. SentryGuard is shut down, I said, my voice completely level. The license expired at midnight. What? Turn it back on. Matt, we're violating our SLAs. First Federal is going to sue us. I cannot run the software without a valid license, Sean. My lawyer has advised me that doing so constitutes willful copyright infringement under federal law. I will not commit a crime on behalf of this company. Matt, please, just run it. We'll fix the paperwork tomorrow. No, Sean, you are the team lead. You got the $32,000 bonus. You should have the skills to handle this manually. Good luck. I hung up the phone. 2 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time it was Owens Maxwell. He was screaming so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Miller, what the hell are you doing? Turn the automation back on right now. The VP is calling me. The clients are calling the CEO. I cannot, Owen. The license has expired. Vanguard is in material breach. I don't care about the license. I will fire you on the spot if you don't turn those scripts back on. You can do whatever you need to do, Owen, but I will not run proprietary software without a license. If you want the system defended, you and Sean can log in and write the block rules manually. You are done, Miller. You hear me? You're finished. I understand, I said. It was 3:15 a.m. I stood up from my desk. I unplugged my headset and laid it next to the keyboard. I took my security badge off my lanyard and placed it on the center of the desk. I grabbed my jacket, walked out of the operations room, and took the elevator down to the lobby. As I walked out of the building, the cool night air hit my face. I took a deep breath. For the first time in 23 years, the weight on my shoulders was gone. I got into my car and drove home, leaving the red alerts behind. I slept until 10 a.m. on Wednesday morning. It was the first time in 23 years that I hadn't set an alarm, and when I woke up, my phone was warm from the influx of notifications. I had 14 missed calls, 8 text messages, and a dozen urgent Slack alerts from people who had never messaged me in their lives. First Federal Credit Union had been down for exactly 3 hours and 40 minutes. Because they were unable to process online transactions during that time, they had racked up thousands of dollars in lost fees, and the service level agreement violation penalty was already sitting at $50,000. 2 other regional banks had suffered partial outages. Vanguard's client status page was glowing solid red, and the sales team was fielding angry calls from executives who were threatening to terminate their contracts. According to the system log screenshots my lawyer, Daniel Cole, had pulled from my backup drive, Sean Campbell had logged in at 1:30 a.m. and tried to copy my SentryGuard directory to a new virtual server, attempting to run the scripts from a clean environment to bypass the shutdown. He had tried 3 times, failing each time because the software required a master license key that was hosted on my personal server. At 9:30 p.m., Daniel Cole had delivered the formal cease and desist order directly to Vanguard's chief legal officer and copied Owen Maxwell. The letter was brutal in its simplicity. It documented the exact timestamp of the license revocation, the specific section of the contract Vanguard had breached, and the federal statutes they were currently violating. Daniel pointed out that Sean's attempts to copy and execute the SentryGuard code after midnight constituted willful copyright infringement under 17 U.S.C. Section 106. The letter made it clear that we were prepared to seek statutory damages of up to $150,000 per infringement under 17 U.S.C. Section 504, as well as an immediate federal injunction to seize the servers running the unauthorized code. When Vanguard's general counsel read the document and saw the system log showing Sean's digital fingerprints on my proprietary files, she immediately called Owen Maxwell into her office. I found out later from a colleague on the day shift that the conversation wasn't polite. The general counsel told Owen in no uncertain terms that if a single line of my code was executed on Vanguard's network again without a valid license, the company would face a federal lawsuit they could not win. She ordered him to restrict all access to my directories immediately. We cannot touch his scripts, she had told Owen. If we do, he has the evidence to ruin us in court. Our cybersecurity liability insurance won't cover us for willful infringement. Owen had to go to Bruce Higgins, the VP of Operations, and explain why the automated threat hunting platform that protected 40 financial institutions was completely offline and why they couldn't just turn it back on. At 1:15 p.m., my phone rang. The caller ID showed Bruce Higgins. I had spoken to Bruce only twice in my career, both times when a major system went down. Matthew, Bruce said, his voice tight but forced into a professional register. We need to talk about this situation. I've spent the morning with our legal team and Owen Maxwell. It seems there has been a major communication breakdown regarding your retention bonus. It wasn't a breakdown, Bruce, I said, sitting on my porch with a cup of coffee. Owen told me exactly what Vanguard thought of my value. I simply accepted his assessment and acted accordingly. We are prepared to correct this, Bruce said quickly. We can match Sean's bonus. We will offer you the same $32, zeros in retention payment, with the 12-month agreement starting today. We just need you to log in, reactivate the SentryGuard service, and help the team stabilize the client networks. That offer would have worked last week, Bruce, I said, but the license has been revoked. I am no longer an employee of Vanguard Cyber Solutions. I placed my badge on my desk at 3:15 this morning. Matthew, be reasonable, Bruce pleaded, his composure slipping. We're drowning here. Sean and the day team have been working since midnight. They're trying to write manual firewall rules to block the probes, but they can't keep up with the volume. We've already had 3 clients threaten to pull their contracts. SentryGuard did the work of 5 full-time engineers, Bruce. You knew that when you signed the agreement 12 years ago. You got to use it for free because you promised to treat me fairly. You broke that promise to save $27,500. Now, you have to pay the market rate. What is the market rate? Bruce asked, his voice flat. If Vanguard wants to license SentryGuard, the price is now $75,000 per year, paid up front, under a strict corporate enterprise agreement. And as for my services, I am not coming back to the night shift. You will have to hire someone else to watch the screens. Silence hung on the line for a long time. I could hear Bruce breathing heavily. 75,000? Bruce finally whispered. That's 3 times what we were paying you in salary adjustments. No, Bruce. That's what it costs to buy an enterprise-grade automation system that works. You were getting a discount because of my loyalty, but you decided my loyalty was only worth $4,500. So the discount is gone. I'll have to discuss this with the CEO, Bruce said, and hung up. I smiled and took a sip of my coffee. I knew the CEO wouldn't hesitate. Compared to losing a multi-million-dollar contract with First Federal Credit Union, $75,000 was pocket change. But more than that, I knew they were realizing that the quiet guy on the night shift wasn't just a cog in their machine. He was the one holding the entire machine together. Within 2 hours of my phone call with Bruce Higgins, Vanguard's legal team contacted Daniel Cole. There was no more arguing, no more corporate posturing, and no more threats of termination. The CEO had intervened. The prospect of losing First Federal Credit Union and facing a potential class action lawsuit from their other banking clients had forced their hand. They signed the corporate enterprise agreement Daniel drafted. The contract was a standard, watertight software license that granted Vanguard the right to run SentryGuard on their servers for 12 months. The price was $75,000, paid in full via wire transfer. Once Daniel confirmed the funds had cleared into his escrow account, he called me. We're good, Matt. You can release the key. I logged into my home server, entered Vanguard's server IP addresses, and generated a new 12-month enterprise license key. 10 seconds after the key was active, Vanguard's automated systems pulled the update. SentryGuard's engines restarted. The firewall rules updated. The traffic blocks began processing, and Vanguard's dashboard slowly turned back from red to green. The threat was contained, but I didn't log back in. I was done. The fallout inside Vanguard Cyber Solutions was quiet, methodical, and devastating. The board of directors and the CEO wanted to know how a single night shift engineer walking out could bring the entire company's network security operations to its knees, forcing them to pay $75,000 for a software license. This inquiry led to a full audit of IT operations and the retention bonus program. The auditors didn't look at PowerPoint slides or listen to smooth presentations. They looked at incident logs, shift records, performance evaluations, and the signed retention agreements. They discovered that the night shift, which handled 80% of the active cyber threats, had been completely neglected, while the day shift, which handled administrative tasks, was overfunded. More importantly, they found the discrepancy in the retention bonuses. Owen Maxwell had distributed the bonuses based on no objective performance metrics. He had given $32,000 to Sean Campbell, a day shift team lead with zero technical certifications, while offering $4,500 to the senior night shift engineer who held the proprietary license to their automation framework. Owen Maxwell was quietly terminated. One morning, his name was simply missing from the company directory and his office was empty. No farewell email was sent. Sean Campbell's situation was different, but no less satisfying. Because he had signed the retention agreement and accepted the $32,000, he was locked in for 12 months. If he left early, he would have to repay the entire amount immediately. Money he had already spent on a new watch and weekend trips. But without SentryGuard's automation running under my active supervision and without me on the night shift to clean up his mistakes, Sean's technical incompetence was exposed to the entire company. Every incident report he wrote was audited. Every configuration change he made was scrutinized. He could no longer hide behind presentations and corporate jargon. The day shift team realized he couldn't help them when things got difficult, and his authority quickly eroded. He spent the remainder of his 12-month commitment in silence, watching his career plateau. After his contract ended, he left Vanguard. Last I heard, he was working an entry-level desktop support position for a school district in Dallas, earning a fraction of his former salary. As for me, I spent the first 3 weeks of my freedom working on my house, taking long walks, and cooking dinner for my daughter Emily. Then, a recruiter from a major technology firm in Austin reached out. They were looking for a senior security architect to design and oversee their daytime threat prevention systems. The interview was unlike any I had experienced. The hiring managers didn't ask me to justify my years on the night shift or explain my technical skills. They had already done their research. They knew about the incident at Vanguard, they knew about the SentryGuard framework, and they understood that companies sometimes make very expensive mistakes about who they choose to value. "We are not looking for someone to clean up disasters in the dark," the VP of Security told me during the interview. "We want someone to build systems that prevent the disasters from happening in the first place." The offer was a day shift role and $18. Zusan base salary increase over my former Vanguard salary, comprehensive health benefits, and a tuition assistance program that covered half of Emily's college expenses. There was no retention agreement or repayment lock-in required. They wanted me for my expertise, not because they were afraid I would walk out. I accepted the offer the same day. Emily is now in her sophomore year at UT Austin, studying hard and maintaining her excellent grades. With my new salary and the tuition assistance program, I don't worry about her college bills anymore. Her tuition is paid, her rent is covered, and I still have room to save for my retirement. But the real victory isn't financial. It is much simpler than that. I sleep through the night now. When my phone buzzes at 2 a.m., it is no longer an urgent alert about a cyber attack or an angry call from a manager demanding a quick fix. It is usually just a text message from Emily, studying late in the library, asking if I am proud of her. I always text back the same 4 words, "More than you know." It took a $27.500 retention bonus gap to teach me a lesson that every 54-year-old man should already know. Your worth is not determined by how much punishment you are willing to absorb. Sometimes, the best revenge is simply refusing to be undervalued anymore. Everything else takes care of itself.